Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, I'm Renee Sorbonne. For years, we've been taught to think about rosacea as a skin type. We see redness, we see flushing and sensitivity, and we label it immediately. But what if that label was the very thing holding us back from getting real, lasting results for our clients? Today, we're going to dismantle that idea. We're going to explore why rosacea isn't a skin type at all and why it is a state of chronic barrier failure. And understanding that distinction makes a big difference in our day-to-day practice. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. A client comes in and says, I have rosacea-prone skin, or that I have sensitive rosacea skin. And we as practitioners really fall into that same trap very quickly and reach for those rosacea-friendly products. Tell our clients to avoid triggers and to focus on calming the redness of their skin. But the issue is that that's all symptom management. It's like chronically mopping up a flooded floor without ever turning off the broken faucet. The real problem isn't the redness. The real problem is that the skin barrier has fundamentally failed, and it is difficult with rosacea as it is a chronic skin condition. But we do still have to rebuild the barrier in order to bring calm to the skin in the first place. Here's how I'd like you to think about it. A healthy skin is like a perfectly built brick wall. The skin cells are the bricks themselves, and the lipids made up of ceramides, cholesterols, and free fatty acids are the mortar holding it together. It is strong, it is resilient, and it keeps the good stuff like water in the skin while keeping the bad stuff out, like allergens and irritants. In a rosacea skin, that wall is crumbling and the mortar is weak. There are gaps and the entire structure is actually compromised. That is what we call barrier failure. And I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like the wall is crumbling and the entire building is on fire when we deal with rosacea. So when the barrier fails, two things happen. First, the water escapes through the gaps in the wall, and that is called transepidermal water loss, or TWAL. This leads to chronic dehydration, which is in and of itself a form of inflammation. And the second thing is that this is a big one for rosacea as well. Irritants and allergens from the environment can now get into those deeper layers of the skin. The skin's defense system is down, and this triggers a massive inflammatory response, the fire, if you will, from the immune system that is triggered. The body sends blood rushing to the area to fight off the invaders, and that's where the redness, the flushing, and the heat actually come from. It's not the primary problem, it is the result of the problem. So when you see a client with rosacea, I want you to stop seeing red sensitive skin. I want you to start seeing a compromised skin barrier screaming for help. This is a huge mindset shift. It moves us from being reactive to being proactive. And instead of trying to calm the fire, we're rebuilding the fireproof wall. So how do we do that? Well, it starts with a barrier first approach. This approach has three core pillars to it. First, we remove the antagonists. We have to identify and eliminate anything that further compromises the barrier, and this includes harsh cleansers, stripping toners, aggressive exfoliants, and even certain active ingredients that are too much for the skin, especially when it has a weakened system. Even certain active ingredients that are too much for a weakened system. Second, we want to replenish the lipids. We need to give the skin the raw materials that it needs to build that mortar for the brick wall. This means using formulations that are very rich in ceramides, cholesterols, and fatty acids, the very things the skin is missing. And this is where biocompatible technology is a game changer in skin care. And third, we want to reduce inflammation. Once we start rebuilding the barrier, we can then introduce ingredients that help to calm the inflammatory response. Things like boswellia, echinacea, and other anti-inflammatory ingredients can be incredibly effective, but we have to do it only after we started to repair that brick wall. Okay, So let's talk about a clinical example. A client comes in with classic rosacea symptoms, persistent redness across the cheeks, flushing after a glass of wine, and a feeling of constant tightness and sensitivity. She's been using gentle foaming cleanser and a light oil-free moisturizer because she thinks her skin is oily and sensitive. Now, what's really happening here? Well, that foaming cleanser is stripping away the few precious lipids that she has, and the oil-free moisturizer is doing nothing to replenish the lipids that she's trying to replace without feeling heavy. So, her barrier is in a state of perpetual crisis as an end result. My first step isn't to give her a rosacea serum. My first step would be to switch her to a lipid-rich cleanser and a moisturizer. We have to rebuild the foundation first, and within weeks her skin is less tight, less reactive, and the redness begins to subside. Why? Well, it is because we address the root cause, the barrier failure. So the takeaway today is this. Rosacea is not a skin type, it's a skin condition of chronic barrier failure. And when you shift your mindset from managing the symptoms to rebuilding the barrier, you unlock a whole new level of results for your clients and by default create long-term management of this particularly challenging condition. So stop chasing the redness, start rebuilding that wall. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this with other fellow practitioners that needs to hear this message. I'll see you next week.